Welcome to the Exchange Coffee Podcast, part of the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network, where coffee people talk to coffee people about coffee and things coffee adjacent. The Exchange is brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee and is hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey. This is episode 40, a chat with Madcap Coffee. Mark and Todd sat down with Trevor and Josiah at the recent SCA Expo in Houston to talk about their soon-to-launch podcast, The Proper Cap. They also talk about coffee business, the industry, community, and the heavens help us, Magnum PI. Note, this episode is brought to you by the letter P, as in plosive. And now, here they are, Mark and Todd.
We're in the Coffee Business Lounge. Is that right?
Yes, we are.
By title, the Coffee Business Lounge.
I'm still unsure how you get invited to the business lounge.
Yeah, well, we invited ourselves to the official Coffee Business Lounge. It didn't hurt that we were rolling deep here at the Exchange with Madcap Coffee's Trevor Corlett and Josiah DeBoer.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can
Wanted to pronounce
just
that
be
correctly.
Josiah.
Josiah DeBoer. So this is a cool opportunity that I want to go ahead and try to describe, and then we can all riff. But you guys are in the process of creating and launching a Madcap original podcast.
Proper Cap.
Called Proper Cap.
Yeah.
The Proper Cap?
The Proper Cap.
The Proper.
2 P's, 1 P.
Technically, Proper has two P's in it.
TBD.
There are two P's in the word
proper.
TBD. Because it could either be a podcast
I already
about
have the domain
coffee
name, so
drinks,
we've got to stick
or
with
it
it.
could be a podcast about hats. I'll tune in either way.
Oh, this is the classic Madcap debate on where the name came from, because people don't know Madcap's a word, and so it must be a pun on a mad cappuccino. It's been the bane of my existence.
That never once crossed my
It never
mind.
crossed your mind. I'm
great.
pretty sure there's at least one Barista Magazine reference
Most people.
to, anyways.
Interesting.
So, Madcap Proper
The
Cap.
Proper Cap is like,
How
hey,
about it?
Madcap is the Proper Cap.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
You've recorded episodes. They're in the can. They have not been released yet.
Soon. We've got some ready to go.
All right.
But yeah, this is one of the coolest elements of our first recording session here at SCA in
Crossover
Houston,
episode.
Texas, where we get to spend a little time with Josiah and Trevor, hear about the Proper Cap, get a sense of the vision, put a huge, the biggest, brightest light we can possibly shine on it, and, possibly have our voices out to some of their listeners and community.
Right.
As
Try to
that
steal
base
some
grows too.
listeners.
Yeah, we can see what type of
Quality listeners. Quality.
But you know what this reminds me of, Todd?
what's that?
This reminds me of the classic crossover episode of Magnum PI where Simon and Simon were on there, and it launched the Simon and Simon show. They went to Hawaii. They had hijinks with Magnum and TC and Rick. And then Simon and Simon's launched. We're doing the exact same
That's
thing.
exactly what I was thinking.
That's what everybody
I
goes.
need to revisit that.
Yeah.
It was one of the best episodes of Magnum PI out there.
I know the name Magnum PI. I've seen an
Oh,
episode.
good Lord.
or
Don't
two,
even.
but
Don't even.
I was born in 1982, Mark.
Was
think I'm
deep
gonna
in
have
the
to-
season. It was
It was.
full
I was
fledged.
As an
0
infant.
years
As an
old.
Yeah.
infant, you could really
In
have enjoyed.
1982.
Well, Todd, I have watched the entire series start to finish about 40 times now.
That's awesome.
I own all of them. I have had Magnum theme parties numerous times in my life.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
As someone who invests a serious amount of time, energy, and money into their annual Halloween costume,
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine you've been Magnum PI.
I own the shorts, the small shorts, the hat, the mustache, the actual shirt used in the show, the same style.
I think it's important for our listeners, Mark, that if people wanted to stream Magnum PI, where would they go?
You could do it at Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And Apple iTunes, you can actually buy the series. I just recommend buying it. Buy it, $65, a lifetime of pleasure. Where else are you going to spend $65 for that much fun?
Staying power.
Can we rent your costume?
Oh, yeah. I'll loan it out. Yeah.
Speaking of other productions that are going to have impact and stick around,
Yeah.
The Proper Cap.
Yes.
Josiah, Trevor, take it away. What's kind of the thing that has inspired you to open up this new format of communication?
Right, one more voice in a sea of very educated voices.
Like another penny into a fountain.
Yes, another ripple in the
a
ocean
wish.
that is just lost. No, that's a great question. But I think the intent is not to be just another coffee podcast. And so I think even one of the episodes we've already recorded is actually with partners that content partners we have. So we use a partner in Michigan for video and photography and stuff. Small company owned by a local couple who have become very passionate about coffee and are really great at telling stories. And so that was actually the first episode we recorded. Had little to do with coffee and more to do just about the value of that partnership that we had with them and why it's so important to us. And so I think as we've discussed like where we're going in the trajectory and like who are the guests that we'd want to have, I mean, there are coffee folks on there, but the intent is like, I mean, I think as a business owner, I really desire sharing more about, what are companies like ours doing with organizational health? What are companies like ours doing in other areas outside of coffee? Because all we do is tend to get shows like this. We go around and we talk about the same old stories that in 20 some years, they're different, but they're the same at the same time. And I think some of the best growth that I've had and some of the most learning I've had has not been from the coffee industry. They've been from other industries and people who have poured into me that has added the best value to my business. And so I think our desire is to diversify it a lot more. We still want to have conversations with importers we work with, and we still want to have conversation with, some producers and other partners and that we've had in different capacities. But yeah, the goal is to broaden our reach a lot more and highlight, a lot of what's happening in Michigan too in the greater community and not just be just broad sweeping across coffee in general. So
it's more consumer facing than it is inside baseball industry.
100%.
Yeah, great.
100%.
Yeah, no, I guess, we rushed into, I mean, I was feeling all the nerves and excitement of coming into the Coffee Business Lounge here. Elite recording session.
Wouldn't?
But it's interesting because if this episode plays to your community, they're also, you mentioned, hey, yeah, we'd love to have our partners in our supply chain, which we are, right? I know Mark and I come through like we're just full-time 100% dedicated podcasters.
Very
That's
polished.
not the case. We actually
We actually do have
we actually focus
side
on
job.
supply chain support, logistics, finance, coffee value discovery, all this different stuff that we work with, with Madcap directly on in some coffee's cases. And, we've traveled in some cases together to other parts of the world. And in doing so, and so that's kind of where we fit into Madcap's picture for those tuning into this that are not coming from the exchange listenership, but maybe from the proper cap.
Yeah, so for our listeners, speak to your podcast.
Mark, go ahead. I mean, there's no one better.
Well, we started it was about 7 years ago. I think it was the first episode.
Wow, time does fly.
It does fly, yeah. And Todd has aged considerably since the podcast started. Mike and I have held ourselves together quite well. But it started as the original take was somebody older in coffee that had been around for a long time and somebody younger, but both heavily involved in the industry. And, basically...
Is that right? Was that part of the pitch deck?
My original belief is... I could share a story about the early 90s, and Todd, can talk about being in the Barista Guild and competing as a barista where I was doing other things. So it was bringing two different perspectives in coffee about various subject matters. And then I had left the company about 4 years ago for a few years, and then came back and we relaunched it. So, I think the premise is still the same, but we've dealt with a wide variety of topics, and then it's turned into almost like long form comedy as well, because a lot of the clips Mike pulls are always some gaffe Todd and I have before or after the show.
So a lot of credit goes to the editing.
100%. Yeah.
This show, the exchange would be nothing.
Yeah, without Mike, forget
our
it.
Fearless producer.
In fact,
Mike
our
Ferguson.
most, and I'll give you a tip here. One of our most, I think our most listened to episodes are always when we draw Mike out into the conversation. When we include him, we go through the roof with numbers. If it's just Todd and I yammering, not so great.
Yeah, I mean, he's sitting just out of view of the video feed right now.
But when he does pop in with a thought, or when I said, what year did we start? The listenership jumps quickly and then drops as soon as Mike gets off the air.
Hi, this is Mike, and that's not true. That's not how podcasts even work. It's not 2001 when someone might call you on the phone and say, "Are you watching TV? Because Brad Pitt is on Friends right now. You have to watch." I mean, the Brad Pitt part is kind of analogous, but listenership does not jump when I'm talking.
How do you guys go about like choosing the guests? Because I've listened to your guys' podcast for a few years now, and been playing catch up on 7 years of podcasting. So I've got a few to go still. How do you go about like choosing your topics and your guests? And
our producer, Mike.
Yeah,
Mike's responsible.
So Mike drops us the topic.
Yeah,
usually with like solid 15 minutes notice,
and then about 40% of the time we stick to the topic, and we don't deviate. And then the other 60, we're all over the place. Guests, we've had a few, but I'd like to do more guests because I think that's where I've had the most fun, like at these show episodes where we're live and we're, talking to people and hearing their stories. Those are I have the most fun with those episodes. But usually the topic, like, lately it's, tariffs and the market going so high and, how to roasters strategize around real challenges. So Mike is very good about finding the topic that's happening, that's affecting our listeners right now.
Yeah, it's important to note that like we don't have an express vision or mission statement per se, but the target is to add value to our roaster partners or roasters within the industry that we don't work with, right? So that we're typically very direct about, hey, this content is meant to add value to people who are roasting coffee.
Or at least give them a good laugh because they're just...
Well, we try to keep it light.
Yeah.
Especially these days. There's a lot of stress out there. I'm sure you're feeling it.
No.
No? Is there something going on?
Proper cat?
Great. Yeah.
No, I think, there's a lot of stress, and so it's nice to keep things light. We try. That's one of the things when I was hired as the youthful
was to keep
side
things
of
light.
Right.
The equation was to, keep things easy and, humor. How have I done? I got a
thumbs up. Thumbs up.
No, that's cool. So, I think... it's exciting to think about, especially for someone who you're like by now. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur for
quite a few years,
20 plus years.
Yeah.
At this stage.
So you're the
long enough to know better.
So you're the old guy.
I'm the old guy.
Podcast. Yeah. So
yeah.
And will it be specifically you and
These
Josiah?
are the co-hosts.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. With the same. I mean, our desire too is to hopefully very rarely will it just be the two of us.
Yeah.
We want to have guests
interactions.
consistently. Yeah. Who can add way more value than the two of us rambling as we do in the office every day. We don't need more of that.
Sure.
Yeah. No one needs to
some
see
might
that.
Say otherwise. No, I think it's really cool as someone who's had so many seasons in the field, as it were, in the entrepreneurial space. Like even Madcap has probably had very distinct seasons where, the climate and pressures of just running the business and trying to be an excellent company, in all facets, coffee and otherwise, right?
Yeah.
There's so many aspects to that. It's cool to imagine you pulling in these other considerations and resources for younger companies, many of whom, there's a lot of coffee roasting and retail companies that are 5 to 10 years old.
Right.
And that are experiencing what is a historically relevant, we believe will be historically relevant time that none of us have really experienced from a market standpoint.
Yeah.
But to have that type of voice raise these thoughts, concerns in some cases, ideas, opportunities, I think there's a lot of leadership in that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like part of the aim is sort of a sharing and giving back type of way, but
100%. And I think just in our process of learning through the guests that we speak to and things like that, it's conversations that you just don't hear enough in coffee, right? It's like, in my 25 years and serving on the SCA board for a time and doing barista guild stuff. I mean, it's, you surround yourself. And I think there's a mentality of like, even when I started Madcap, like much of the motivation was like, to do this well, I have to be the best coffee expert that I can. So you're always trying to learn. And then you get to a point where you realize, there's the whole entrepreneurial perspective of like, you get to a point when you start up where it's like, are you the startup guy?
Right.
Or are you the person who transitions to actually working on the business long term? And usually, the pure entrepreneur hires the CEO, or they find the person who's going to run it because they're not suited to that. They're not the operations person, And so I think there was a point in Madcap's growth phase in history where I realized like everything has happened organically and I have control over nothing. And so the cultural roller coaster of a space, like when you're living it and like it's something suited to like who I am and my DNA, that's fine. But when I'm not engaged in every single thing because we've grown to a certain extent, and then you find pieces starting to fall away, or like cultural miscues, or like some, whether it's labor challenges or quality challenges or something, well, it's likely because the structure isn't there, and like we got started in, when you, in the 90s, it was like the damn the man mentality of like anti-structure and like, it's, you're squashing the creativity and everything else. And then you realize, you get to an age where you're like, oh, that's why corporations exist. Like that's why they look like that, but it doesn't need to look exactly like that. And so, I would say like about the time we really started growing our cafes is when I made this switch to like, I need to learn how to run a business or find someone else to do it. Right. And so I'm still trying to figure it out. So like the idea of inviting people into those conversations, especially as a wholesale roaster, who's like, we do have our own cafes, so that lends a way to experiences we can share with people. Sure. But we are wholesaling, and at as much value as we can give in providing people coffee and education, as Josiah chips into, giving them more often than not, it's like, hey, what insights do you have in P&Ls? And the fact that people are even asking those questions, those were not... Like, when did we ever have those conversations in retail conversations?
No, for the longest time, it was like, well, how do you make the coffee taste the best? Right? Which is not an invalid question and should always matter. But we were so fixed on that we were like chasing ghosts. Yeah. And basics like, we were chasing how do we thrive as a business?
I feel like that's kind of like something that we're passionate about, is like, as just food interested people, like food and beverage scene, like you go to a bunch of spots as you travel around and you find inspiration from a wine bar that's really cool, or like a pizza spot, and you're like, how do we pull from that and bake that into what we do, or how we train, or how we engage customers? And that's kind of part of the inspiration of what we want to do, is like, how do we get those people to tell their stories?
Sure.
Well, as well as their experiences are very similar to yours.
Exactly.
Their industry has its own challenges, and the same rising stars, and the people that have been hit, by market, changes. And I learn a lot from other industries, probably more so than coffee. It taught me a lot, as I was growing my business. And I love that angle. I think that's really interesting. Those episodes would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, and to that point, you're front loading some episodes. You're in production, but you haven't begun releasing. Do you have episodes that you want to tease out here? Like, this is what's coming down the pipe in terms of guests or content, or is it too soon to really?
I think we can tease some.
We could tee up a couple. Yeah. You want to tee up?
Yeah, I think Trevor hinted at one with a really fun. They're a young couple who just kind of like started this production company essentially, and we talk a little bit about hustle culture and like what does that look like. And I learned a lot through that conversation, to be honest. I went in thinking one thing and I left being like very inspired, and that might have to be broken into a few episodes, to be honest.
And now you're getting up at 2 a.m. and you're running 10 miles. And then, you're grinding. I love it. Yeah.
So that one is going to be a really fun listen. We've got some local industry people who are not coffee, but are teed up to have some really interesting conversations in terms of hospitality and entrepreneurship.
Distillers.
Distillers. Just people who are experts in their field, who we know maybe a little bit about, or like we enjoy their products, but it'll be fun to learn from them and how they build their companies and how they operate. It's kind of an interesting thing. So
Yeah, that's where I think the meat is in these stories, is how they built what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had some people, even just today, as we've been, these events are cool because it brings people from all over the world into one convention center. People are like, hey, we've been talking about the podcast and they want to hop on and be a guest. So we might have some random people from previous interactions and relationships coming on. So that'll be fun too.
Yeah. I think dialing in, I mean, we have the next one planned to record is with the cafe manager from our OG location, both to talk about her experience in managing our cafe there, but also that location for us, like pre-COVID, had reached a plateau where we kind of thought we'd hit the ceiling in terms of like the capacity of revenue that location could do. And it's right in the heart of downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. And since then, that cafe is it is just blowing up. And we've really tried to evaluate what is the thing what's changed. So I think consumers have changed. I think it was a location we never closed in the midst of COVID. So we found ways to keep it open, serving out a door or whatever we had to do to keep it open. So we developed a new customer base through that process of people that were still going out and getting coffee, and we were the only place open doing that. And then there's, we made a big push. Josiah did. It was like a year ago, not long after Unreasonable Hospitality came out by Will Guidara. And as a company, we encourage people, hey, let's read this together and meet on a regular basis and talk through it. And so we've really been pushing hospitality in our cafes. And Ria, our cafe manager at that location, they are they're working the dining room in a way where suddenly you've got someone that they saw your water was empty and they brought you hospitality we don't really experience in cafes, right?
That's awesome.
And we didn't change the structure of the cafe. The space isn't designed any different. It's still the same. But they're making a concerted effort.
Yeah, that's such a huge element. I don't know what switch flipped for me in the last specifically in recent months. It's not to say I hadn't, appreciated or been looking for top quality service in the past. I feel like I would have always had this conversation, but I feel so much more aware of the subtleties of thoughtful service and how the energy of an environment, to sound very squishy, but I think it's a meaningful part of it is like when you are in a place where generally speaking, people are looking for ways to make you welcome and feeding a sort of open kind of welcoming energy. It is a huge game changer. And I feel especially when we're in this kind of, the pressure is on to make sure we're adding enough value where as the cost of doing anything, as economic headwinds set in this weird socioeconomic kind of moment in the United States, I think this is critical to be thinking about.
Why is that rocket science?
It's mind blowing. I mean, for me, I have said this in every place I've ever worked, and is that service and hospitality always wins. And the shops, whether it's coffee or restaurants or clothing stores that stick out for me, it's always based on the service and the experience I get and the hospitality and the genuine gratitude that these shops have for the customer that supports them. Those stick out for me rather than a decent product at a price that's quick.
Right.
That leaves me cold half the time.
No, and the whole idea of exclusivity, we have the best coffee or this is the only place you can get this.
Right.
I understand the mentality there, but that's sort of an antithesis of this.
Well, it's one piece. It's that great. There's
it's
that.
Not uncool. I just mean a lot of time in trying to protect that element, it becomes the exclusivity feeling to someone who comes in out of the neighborhood you're in.
Totally.
It sort of creates this outcome as well that you're oh, do I deserve to be here? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan in. He has stores around the U.S., but a store called Sid Mashburn. And Sid Mashburn, it's a clothing store. He was one of the designers at Land's End and J. Crew, and he has this kind of take on Southern, the preppy look, but a Southern twist on it.
First location was in Atlanta,
Georgia was his first location. And you go into there, it's like vinyl playing, and you come in, they offer you a whiskey or a wine or beer, and there's ping pong table, and it's just like you're in this place where you're like, this is the coolest spot ever. But his big thing was, if you can't access the customer because you're busy, hug them with your eyes when they come in. Like, that's his big mantra of catching their eyes when they enter the building and make them feel welcome. And every time I've gone to that store, people don't leave. They stay there because the experience is so great. And he launched his own coffee thing a handful of years ago. And I wrote him, like, I'll help you in any way I can for free, just because I really appreciate what you do. I mean, and I want to somehow attach myself to this movement.
Yeah.
Of course, he never took me up on the offer, but it was put out there, Todd. It was put out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Mark also, I don't know if you guys would be up on this, but Mark is also has very high standards for the service of a traditional espresso.
Well, I mean,
I shouldn't say high standards. I should say unwavering standards.
Yes, I do, and I equate it to those of us that are straight shot drinkers.
Yeah.
We're the Luddites of the industry. We don't ask for much from you.
Yeah.
We're not asking for cold foam. We're not asking for a Shakerado. So make that one thing great. And I got off of this tangent on an episode, and I've caught both good and bad flack for that episode, but. I was at a shop where they basically handed me a Demi-Tasse cup in my hand and just like, see you later, buddy. And I'm like, wait, what is this?
Nice.
And now people are posting their shots from their shop, like a tray and a water and a spoon. And like, what do you think about this?
So what is it for you? What is your ultimate? Like, what is the...
Well, for one, the Demi-Tasse needs a spoon.
Yeah.
Because I like to take the crema and move it and then...
For sure.
And wipe the lip of the cup with the crema.
You ring the...
Yeah. And so that's I'm not going to do it with my finger.
Very European of you.
And I like the sparkling water aspect of it.
It's essential.
It's a palate cleanser. I don't care so much about the tray. That's not a thing.
Cool.
But those three elements need to be in place.
Yeah.
And rarely, if ever, do I get it. I mean, it's honestly.
Yeah, the three elements is rare. You're not wrong.
And to channel my inner Nick Cho, you do not do espresso to go ever. So that kind of a cup is unacceptable. And so if anybody hands me that, I literally have put it on the counter and walked away. After I've paid, I'm not drinking that.
There's no threats to punch them anywhere?
No, or set them on fire or whatever.
Very specific
punch them in a specific area.
I do kind of feel if you don't have a minute to enjoy a shot of espresso in a cafe, like, do you really need that espresso? You know what I mean? Like, you should just enjoy it in the cafe.
You may love or hate our experience.
Yeah, I'm curious where this is going to go.
You may love or hate it.
So I walk in.
Yeah, you walk in, you order an espresso. We always have two options. Sometimes
two coffee options.
Two coffee options. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you for the clarity. I'm very passionate about giving people options in espresso that are thoughtfully dialed in on a regular basis, not just when someone decides they're going to order the secondary espresso option that someone happens to have. So, and if it doesn't happen well, then you blame the trainer. No,
I can take
it. But yeah, so usually it's our house blend, but sometimes we mix it up. We'll have two single origin options.
Okay.
We do origin takeovers sometimes. So it just depends. But so you would choose which coffee you want.
Okay.
I'm
happy so far.
You would always get sparkling. My staff know I don't like sparkling.
You don't?
No.
Why is that?
It depends when I have the espresso, but usually I always get a single espresso and a single macchiato every morning, and I don't.
Okay.
When I do it first thing, I don't actually like
It's his
sparkling water with
breakfast.
it.
So do you
It is my
flat water
breakfast.
or do you just
Flat
go
water.
You flat
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
Okay. Right.
But if you would order espresso, so you get the sparkling water, that would be handed to you right out of the gate, off draft.
Love it.
But
Not
then
seeing a weak point in this.
Then you are served your espresso in a 3-ounce glass brandy snifter.
Interesting.
And so
I'm not sure how I feel about that. This is where you're saying.
This is where the love hate comes in. So
and I understand the reasons why you're doing that. I get it.
So there's, the aromatics, I feel like you can appreciate them more.
100%. Yeah, you're correct.
It does help with cooling it a little bit faster than a demi-tasse would, and I think ours is more enjoyable cooled. Incorporating all the elements, it's really easy you want to swirl it because it's in a tiny brandy snifter.
Yeah.
And our customers that do know, we have some that are like, this is not the traditional way. So
and
those
you guys
customers
are okay
do
with
request.
that. That's amazing. If that is unheard of where I live. Yeah, I don't know. I think if I were that customer, I would probably try the brandy snifter because I do understand the reasons why behind it. But the traditionalist in me wants that demi-tasse, wants that thing. But I would do it just to compare and contrast. I would probably order 2 shots and do it that way.
I am with you, though. If I got a demi-tasse with no spoon, I'm like, that first sip is going to be interesting. So
yeah, it's like somebody giving you a salad, no fork. You're like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, you can't swirl it in a demi.
Salad, no fork.
Yeah.
That's the name of the episode.
Salad, no
All
fork.
salad, no fork.
A salad, no fork.
Yeah. Our new podcast on the Kavoya Podcast Network.
Yeah. This is good stuff. I don't want to get too lost on Mark's obsession with espresso format.
But I appreciate the subject.
I wanted to tee it up. No, I think, it's exciting. I think that I'd be remiss if I didn't set up a moment of just saying, as someone who has found great satisfaction in striking up the Exchange podcast under Mike's guidance and in tandem with you, Mark, over the years. It's been so satisfying, and I hope and expect to check in months and years to come with you guys. Like, I would imagine this becomes an equally fun and satisfying and sustaining type of element that keeps you on your toes and offers opportunities to hear new points of view and also simultaneously be vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm a learner here, setting yourself up in that way that, you can kind of present that way, and culturally that'll have a great impact, on the company and your community. And I'm just so excited.
Yeah. And
thanks for setting the expectations.
Yeah. Well, and I would say embrace the learning process.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most fun episodes we've done, the audio's a little wonky, or we get off track and things are cutting in and out. Those are fun because it's real.
Yeah.
And I think the mistake out of the gate is to try to be so polished and perfect, because that sounds great for the listener, but the listener appreciates the warts and all of the podcast. And even these remote sessions we're doing, the audio is going to be a mess, but it's going to be great because it's a mess. We're in a live, vibrant place, and it should sound, bustling.
Exactly.
So, hopefully Mike will interject some of our greatest, the blooper reels. You could pull the old Ed McMahon, you are correct, sir.
Mike is just looking at me over the monitor, as he does most days, and I'd have to just laugh because I'm just so scared.
I think Mike fell asleep.
I'm just going to picture Mike looking at me. Wow, salty dog. You can tell Mike has to sit next to me every day now. Whew. He's tired of hearing me talk about sandwiches.
This poor bastard, what he has to go through in a day to get through. I had another inappropriate story I was going to tell.
I'll take the dark gray would actually be ideal. Black in somebody's world, but not mine. My son is a huge fan of that video, and specifically when Ian begins talking.
Why? I've lost it. I've lost what I was going to say there. I love this, how you guys are in a plush studio and I'm in the supply closet. Stock up on Dramamine because it's going to be a bumpy year. Cupping and buying brings me to one of the, I have many.
Oh, there's like a room next door that we're hearing. What do I want to say here? This is going to be a full chop. Mike just cuts that shit out anyway.
They were, and from the
we're sort of taking a gander here at a Colossus. So, but I think, coming in hot.
But, if I go back to that one, it's like, that was one of the greatest experiences because it was the launching pad. We didn't quite know what we were doing. And, slowly you're going to get there. You're going to be great in no time because all that practice will get you there. But be okay with those. That's the best advice I can.
That's good advice. I feel like it's embracing the journey and like understanding where you're at and where you're headed and being in the present and not being too worried about all those small things that are really small.
Yeah, no, this is a perfect example of things that are more about the rhythm of doing it and, just being regular. It's almost like respiration rather than just like a result. You're not like, it's not just, oh, hey, we're going to, create this object, with objective quality at the end. It's more like, taking people along for the thought process and the consideration of all these different things that kind of are at the center of what makes Madcap click. And that's a very cool and special thing, especially for an iconic coffee brand.
As well as finding your own voices and your own banter. Like that, you guys may have a relationship at work that's one way, but when you get on the podcast, it may shift. The character of you may come out a little more exaggerated, and you start to lean into that as people say, yeah, that was really funny. I like that angle. I mean, I think that my wife makes fun of me all the time because she goes, you have this podcast voice you come out with when I listen to you, but when we're at home, you don't talk like that. And I said, yeah, because it would be ridiculous if I talk the way I do, on the podcast.
Does she listen to every podcast?
No, of course not. No, there's no way. She'll like 1 out of 20 maybe. But she goes, I have this kind of like, hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast kind of like radio.
It's the exchange.
And I don't think I do that. Welcome to the Exchange, a podcast. Welcome to the Exchange, a podcast. Welcome to the Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange, a podcast. Hi, and welcome again to the Exchange. Good evening, and welcome to the Exchange. Welcome to the Exchange. But apparently, it's obvious.
Every now and then it gets a little.
But what has this done for you and Todd's relationship?
Oh, I mean, it's like a lot. Like you hear a lot of these Hollywood relationships where it's like they're great on camera, and then when the camera's off, they can't stand each other. That's kind of what it is. Todd goes off to his penthouse and ignores
I like to
me.
be as dramatic as possible.
Yeah, you should see like the fits he has. When the takes are wrong. I mean, we're not allowed to air those, but no. I mean, I think it's when I first started doing this with Todd. I mean, we knew each other pretty well, but we didn't know each other that well. And I would say that our relationship has increased dramatically. I mean, I'm a gigantic fan of Todd on the podcast. I think he does a fantastic job. And I always think Todd props me up more than the vice versa. So I can't imagine doing this podcast with anyone else. When I left here, I was going to launch another one, and I was trying to find a Todd type person. It was impossible because I just didn't feel that connection. And that, that developed quickly because I think by our third episode, I really understood where Todd was coming from and the character he was. And I wanted to give him the room to be that guy. And so I think it's improved it dramatically.
Yeah, I would say the same. I feel very fortunate. And again, to highlight, the man outside of the frame here and without a Mike. No, it's really cool. It's like another way, to experience one another and a way to, have fun and to have to put yourself out there, which I think is, defining to relationships. I respect you tremendously, and
he was talking to me, by the way.
Even after you started the podcast.
I think it's really cool. You get insights into what makes someone tick and how they look at things, and also how they're working with themselves to, in our case, we're trying to really add something meaningfully valuable to roasters in the space that we operate in, and you see the kind of values that come to the surface in someone like Mark and what he tries to offer, and picks his battles and plants his flags, and we disagree at times. But I am very grateful for that. I find that it's been very galvanizing for our friendship outside of the podcast. But
and I think having somebody extremely knowledgeable like Mike is the reference point for us. So I love nothing more. I love is making some hyperbolic statement and Mike put me in check on the air, which I have done numerous times because I am one for the hyperbole.
Hey. Ride the wave, man.
So yeah, I would say don't use the words unprecedented in coffee because he will write you a letter and correct you. So just say, "Oh, this is interesting right now," but don't act like it's historic.
So don't claim this is the first time anyone's ever done this on a podcast.
Or like lately the prices we're seeing are unprecedented. That is absolutely not true. We've been proven wrong numerous times by Mike.
But yeah, before we land the plane on this, our attempt again in the official Coffee Business Lounge at SCA Houston 2025.
Right.
We've gotten a lot of coffee business done. Well,
are there any things that for you, for the proper cap that you feel like you haven't gotten from our time together that you want to pose?
Would you like to speak to that?
Something, I'll get to the question, but something I got to experience with Kavoya was getting to participate at Grow this past year in Colombia. And I got to experience like Kavoya hospitality and what that felt like, and which was super incredible and super unique. Something you guys are, I would consider innovating the industry by providing experiences like that. I guess the question would be, this could be personal and then professional, like where are you guys drawing inspiration from for building these spaces for connection with people?
Whoa.
That's a big question to land the plane with.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer would probably be there'd be as many answers as there are people on the team. And as, the same that event, in Colombia and now the upcoming iteration in Guatemala later next month. I mean, I feel like, also it's totally reflective of like these specific people who are, yourself included in the case of Colombia, right? Who are there. I think the cool thing is we have the support all the way up, and collectively, laterally, like within our team to say, hey, let's take a risk, put resources behind it, and believe that like people in this whole thing matter, and that community comes out of valuing people first, right? And I think then you can't really miss it. I think it's, to be honest, looking back, I look at the early days of the BGA.
Right.
And like the Roasters Guild. And like those things were really special because it mattered who was there. Right. And I don't mean it mattered who was there like, oh, you can't do this thing without Josiah. I think it's everything is going to be impacted and special because you've made space for people to be themselves in the room.
And you built a community. You built a very strong community. Yeah.
Flourishes because of it. So yeah, it's kind of like, I'd almost relate it more. I'm not a basketball guy. I would imagine.
So you're going to make some weird
I'm going to try to relate it to basketball.
I'm ready for
I
this.
don't know that there's... Well, I mean, let's relate it to football. And I mean the world's football, not American football.
Amen.
Like protecting the ball, right? Like when you put your body in between a defender and the ball and you're not touching it, you're making space for it. Like I think in a lot of ways, to try and bring this to sport, you kind of are trying to, in the best case, safeguard space so those things can just happen.
So Barstool Sports has nothing to worry about our podcast. We're not going to infringe on with our sports analogies are going to be
clearly
flimsy at best.
I don't know if our world football fans are going to be running to this episode.
You never know.
I did the best I could. So yeah, no, I think it's cool. I'm just so elated to hear that was the type of experience you had, because that was the first of its kind and unforgettable to me being there as well. Mark will actually be attending
in Guatemala.
Yep. And so, yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be a totally different event, but we're doing our best to kind of guard the space and allow it to unfold.
I would answer that question. And for me, this industry is 100% based on relationships. That's more important than anything. Pricing or product are one thing, but it's the relationships that are everlasting. And to have a company that focuses on that as the important point, developing relationships, building community, having that connection, everything else follows that. It will all happen. And so I always focus on, the customers I choose to work with are because I'm curious about what they do. I want to have a relationship with them. I want to be a part of their professional development or their lives. And that desire is why I still stick around, after all these years, because it's all about relationships for me. And if it was just transactional, I would have been bored with this a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest business lesson in that statement is that I think with a company that, we've strived to prioritize relationships, that these things that the industry is experiencing, like the market,
right,
tariffs, whatever it is, those things are actually easier to navigate because of how strong our relationships are, whether it's with producers,
sure,
or exporters, importers, local vendors, like you name it.
Customs agents you can bribe to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a name, like tell me an amount.
Yeah.
Let's go. But those relationships have made it so much easier to navigate those challenges.
Yeah.
And so seeing how some people respond to those challenges, it's like, well, you've just been doing it wrong. It's, the same service that COVID provided for us and sort of cleansing the people who weren't necessarily doing it right in the first place. We started in the recession in 2008.
Wow.
In Michigan.
Good year.
It was such a great year.
Great launch point.
I received lots of criticism. Took me a long time to make money too.
Yeah.
So it's great. But I think that's a good segue into, like, for us, the priority. I would hope that, folks, our listeners who would see the interaction and see what you all are doing in your organization and what you're providing through your podcast even would be an opportunity for them to hear more that's more hyper-focused in that regard. But I think, vice versa, to have your listeners who are most likely a lot of other roasters.
Right. Sure.
And the fact that we're not necessarily always having coffee conversations, but like digging into other partnerships, relationships, and other avenues and industries that, I don't care if you're a competitor, there's a lot of value to be had for them in those, hopefully, if we approach those conversations well.
Yeah.
And so I think that would, right? That would be the proper way to do it.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Bottom line, the proper cap coming soon to all streaming platforms.
All platforms.
Cannot wait. And thank you both.
Any sponsors lined up, like Manscaped or anybody in there?
That'd be great if you know the people.
Well, I was gonna ask you if they sponsor every podcast. Don't you know this? Except for ours.
Are they your title sponsors?
I wish. That'd be great. We could make our own Manscaped commercials.
Now taking applications.
Well, to all that have tuned in from the Proper Cap and the Exchange, it's been a joy. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Got a lot on deck. Thanks for taking the time and spending it with us.
Thanks to you too.
Yeah. And best of luck.
Thank you so much, you guys.
You got a crush?
Thanks for sharing this with us.
Of course.
Stay proper.
Yeah, dude.
That's our sign off.
You've been listening to the Exchange Coffee Podcast, part of the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network, brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee, where coffee is always a collaborative voyage. The Exchange is hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey and produced by me, Mike Ferguson. Our free use theme music for this episode is Madcap Scheme by Jeff Harvey. Remember, you can always email me at mike.ferguson@kavoya.com. Thanks for listening, and now your postscript.
The weight of Todd Mackey's name on a launch is going to take you very far. So
I do sell pretty well right now.
Just for the podcast, can you say the reason why we're in here is because of my president status, not because of Trevor's passes? That just,